In Los Angeles, as the sun began its descent towards the late afternoon, painting the sky in hues of gold and orange, a cool breeze drifted in from the Pacific, attempting to temper the day's warmth. On one of the city's most prestigious boulevards, life flowed at its own distinct rhythm, rapid yet measured. Storefronts showcased the latest creations from the world's most luxurious brands, reflecting the sleek lines of high-end cars gliding past and the expensive sunglasses of elegantly dressed pedestrians strolling along the sidewalks. This street was an embodiment of success and affluence, a stage where dreams were sold and status was whispered. Amidst this glittering, somewhat aloof world stood Argento and Pearl, Silver and Pearl, a jewelry store radiating opulence even from the outside. Located on a prime corner, its facade was clad in dark granite, its display windows seemingly made of bulletproof glass, showcasing treasures illuminated like museum artifacts by precisely aimed spotlights. The heavy, dark, carved wooden door with its gleaming brass handle seemed to silently question anyone who approached. "Do you belong here?" One man asking himself that very question stood hesitating before that door. Arthur Pendleton. At 75, his face was etched with the lines of a long, challenging, yet love-filled life. His eyes held a weariness, but beneath it shimmered a gentle kindness. The brown, slightly tweed-textured jacket he wore had clearly been cherished for years. Though the collar was slightly frayed, it was clean and pressed. His gray flannel trousers, though neatly ironed, showed a slight sheen from decades of wear, as did his leather shoes, well-maintained but softened by time. Around his neck, a plaid tie, perhaps a fashion from decades past, was knotted with care. In his hand, clutched almost like a sacred relic, was a small, humble but neat package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was the money he had painstakingly saved over 5 long years from his modest pension. His destination was Argento and Pearl. He was on a mission, perhaps the most significant shopping trip of his life, for his beloved wife of 50 years, Clara. For their golden anniversary, he wanted to fulfill a quiet dream of hers, a simple, elegant pearl pendant. Clara had never desired extravagance. For her, love, respect, and shared moments were paramount. But Arthur knew how she sighed softly, wistfully, looking at the delicate single pearls in shop windows over the years. He wanted to gift her that small luxury, a token of his gratitude for her half-century of devotion, patience, and companionship. His heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He had never set foot inside a store like this before. What if his savings weren't enough? What if they looked down on him? But the image of Clara's smile, her radiant happiness, gave him courage. 50 years, he whispered to himself, the number echoing with the weight of shared history. 50 years of love, patience, and partnership. Clara deserves the very best. He took a deep breath, tried to straighten his slightly stooped shoulders, reached for the heavy brass door handle, and pushed. Just seconds after Arthur, another figure slipped through the same doorway, emanating a very different energy, yet also attempting to remain unnoticed. Keanu Reeves had parked his black Norton Commando a few blocks away, stowing his helmet and leather gloves in the bike's saddlebag. He felt the pleasant fatigue of a long ride, a brief escape along the coast he often took to clear his head. Now, back in the city's embrace, he had a small errand to run. A close friend, a renowned sculptor, had asked him to pick up a specific limited edition silver bracelet from this particular store. Designed by an Italian artist for an upcoming charity auction. The arrangement was exclusive to this boutique. Normally, Keanu would have his team handle such things, but it was a personal favor for a dear friend who wanted discretion. His attire was deliberately understated. A plain black t-shirt, comfortable dark cargo pants, and slightly worn sneakers. The black, unbranded baseball cap pulled low over his forehead, and the lightly tinted sunglasses were meant to deflect attention. As he entered, he noticed the elderly man, Arthur, hesitating just inside, sensing his nervousness. Keanu instinctively held back a step, allowing the older man precedence, then moved towards a display case in a quieter corner of the store, taking in his surroundings. Places like this were always interesting social aquariums to him. Stages where people displayed their status, expectations, and sometimes their prejudices. Inside Argento and Perle, Arthur felt as if he'd stepped into another dimension, completely insulated from the city's clamor outside. The air was cool and still, carrying that expensive blend of vanilla, sandalwood, and perhaps cedar. The floor beneath his feet was cool, veined Italian marble, its polished surface reflecting the soft, ambient lighting. Thick, patterned silk rugs absorbed every footstep, contributing to the profound silence, broken only by the gentle, asynchronous ticking of dozens of valuable timepieces displayed like artifacts in glass cases, the hushed whisper of captured time. Arthur felt dwarfed by the opulence. He ran a nervous hand over his jacket. His eyes darted towards the gleaming displays, diamonds of impossible size, sapphires the color of the deepest ocean, emeralds radiating a vibrant green fire. Each piece was flawlessly crafted, seemingly from another world. He wondered where his humble request for a simple pearl pendant fit within this sea of brilliance. Behind the long, polished counter stood Julian Thorne. In his late 20s, impeccably handsome, clad in a perfectly tailored dark gray Italian suit with gleaming silver cufflinks, his dark hair expertly coiffed. He looked like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. He was ostensibly attending to another customer, running a velvet cloth over an already sparkling necklace. But Arthur noticed the quick, dismissive glance Julian cast his way. Keanu, meanwhile, browsed a section dedicated to modern men's jewelry near the entrance. He hadn't yet spotted the specific bracelet his friend wanted. From the corner of his eye, he watched the counter, observing the dynamic. He saw Julian's overly solicitous manner with the obviously wealthy customer, the practiced smiles, and then noted the subtle shift, the cooling of expression, as Julian registered Arthur waiting patiently nearby. After a few minutes, the other customer completed their purchase and left with a flourish. Julian finally turned his attention to Arthur. Though his posture remained stiff, his smile purely professional, lacking any warmth. "Yes, sir?" he inquired, his voice smooth but cool. "How may we assist you today?" Arthur cleared his throat. "Hello. I was looking for a gift for my wife," he began, his voice slightly trembling despite his best efforts. He held the small package in his hand a little tighter. It's our 50th wedding anniversary today." He offered the information again, hoping it might soften the young man's demeanor. She loves pearls. I was hoping to find a simple, elegant pearl pendant." Julian's eyebrows rose almost imperceptibly. "Ah, the Golden Jubilee. How charming. Congratulations." But his eyes were still fixed on Arthur's worn jacket and slightly frayed tie. "Our pearl collection is quite extensive, sir. South Sea pearls, Akoya, Tahitian blacks. Naturally, the price varies significantly based on quality and size." He gestured vaguely towards the most brilliantly lit display case. Some of our finest pieces are showcased here. However, perhaps if we had an idea of your approximate budget, I could guide you more efficiently. To save your valuable time, of course. It was the most polite way of asking, "Can you even afford to breathe the air in here?" Arthur felt a flush creep up his neck. "Well," he stammered, "my budget isn't enormous. I've been saving for quite some time. It's not about the flashiness, more the elegance, the meaning. Perhaps like those ones in that corner display." He pointed towards a section with more understated pieces, single white pearls on delicate silver chains. Julian followed Arthur's gesture with a look of barely concealed disdain. "That section? Ah, yes, our silver collection. It contains more accessible pieces, often chosen by our younger clientele for their first jewelry purchase, or for more casual wear." He pronounced accessible as if it were a slightly dirty word. "Still, the prices, even for those, might surprise you. Perhaps I could suggest a more modest alternative." Keanu, still pretending to examine cufflinks, felt his jaw tighten. The condescension was palpable. Arthur persisted, his voice regaining a little strength. "No, thank you. I specifically wanted a pearl. My wife adores pearls. Could I please just see that one, the one at the front?" Julian sighed dramatically, a put-upon expression crossing his handsome features. "Very well, sir," he conceded grudgingly. He sauntered over to the display case Arthur indicated. He unlocked it with a small, ornate key and retrieved the pendant. But instead of handing it to Arthur, he held it between his own manicured fingers, turning it this way and that under the light. "Yes, this is an Akoya pearl, decent luster," he commented dismissively. "Silver setting, simple design." He then named the price. It was almost exactly the amount Arthur had saved, every last cent. Arthur's face lit up. "Wonderful, that's perfect. I have enough. May I purchase it?" Julian immediately pulled the pendant back slightly. "One moment, sir," he said, his eyes narrowing. "We typically prefer credit card or wire transfer for purchases of this nature. Were you planning on paying cash?" His gaze flickered towards the slight bulge in Arthur's inner jacket pocket where the package rested. "Yes, cash," Arthur replied, feeling a new wave of embarrassment. "It's the money I've saved. For 5 years." The smug, knowing smirk returned to Julian's face. "Cash? In this amount?" "Sir, due to our strict anti-money laundering policies, we are unable to accept cash payments over a certain threshold. Furthermore," he added, his voice dropping conspiratorially, "carrying such an amount in cash, it's not entirely safe, is it?" The implication was clear. Julian suspected the money wasn't legitimately earned. Arthur was stunned into silence for a moment. "Money laundering? What are you talking about? This is my pension, saved penny by penny for 5 years. His voice rose, tinged with indignation. Just then, Miss Evelyn Davenport, the store manager, glided silently towards them. Her platinum blonde hair was impeccably styled, her gray silk suit pristine. Her face was impassive, but her eyes were sharp and assessing. "Is there a problem here, Julian?" she asked, her voice smooth as ice. Julian quickly explained the situation, framing Arthur's desire to pay cash as suspicious. Miss Davenport's gaze fixed on Arthur, devoid of any warmth or empathy. "Sir," she said crisply, "our store adheres to very specific procedures. For security and legal reasons, we cannot accept large cash payments. Furthermore," she paused, giving Arthur another slow, deliberate appraisal from head to toe. Perhaps you might have come better prepared for a purchase in this segment. Your best course of action would be to return at another time with a more suitable payment method, or, as Julian may have suggested, explore establishments more aligned with your budget. It was a dismissal, wrapped in a thin veneer of corporate policy. This was too much for Arthur. It wasn't just the humiliation now. It was an attack on his honesty, his lifetime of careful saving. Tears welled in his eyes, blurring the glittering jewels around him. But I just wanted... The words caught in his throat. He felt utterly defeated, stripped of his dignity. Miss Davenport had already turned away. "Julian, please show the gentleman out." Julian stepped towards Arthur, a triumphant glint in his eyes. "If you'll please leave, sir. We wouldn't want you to cause any further disturbance." Arthur had never felt so small, so powerless. The dream he had nurtured for 5 years, the joy he had anticipated seeing on Clara's face, all of it crumbled under the weight of their cold judgment. He lowered his head, unable to meet anyone's eyes, and turned with trembling legs towards the door. As he walked, he felt the stares of the other customers, some curious, some pitying, perhaps some like Julian and Davenport, silently judging. From his corner, Keanu Reeves had witnessed the entire exchange, his initial discomfort blossoming into a cold, hard anger. He saw Arthur's hope turn to humiliation, his quiet dignity assaulted by snobbery and baseless suspicion. He heard every condescending word from Julian, every icy dismissal from Miss Davenport. He saw the unshed tears in the old man's eyes as he was effectively thrown out. It wasn't just rude. It was cruel. It was a violation of basic human respect. Keanu's own experiences with judgment and the superficiality of fame felt distant compared to the raw, personal pain he saw etched on Arthur's face. This wasn't about a celebrity being misjudged. This was about a decent, loving man being crushed simply for wanting to express his love in a way he thought fitting. The memory of his own father, the significance of the watch he himself hoped to repair, intertwined with Arthur's plight. It felt personal. As Arthur reached the heavy oak door, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Keanu made his decision. His anonymity, his friend's errand, none of it mattered now. He couldn't stand by and let this injustice pass. He pushed himself away from the display case and followed Arthur, ignoring the surprised glances from Julian and Miss Davenport. Outside, the late afternoon sun felt harsh on Keanu's eyes after the store's dim lighting. He saw Arthur a few yards down the sidewalk, slumped onto a stone bench beneath a potted palm tree, his head bowed, his small package still clutched tightly in his hand. His shoulders were shaking slightly. Keanu approached him quietly and sat down on the bench beside him, leaving a respectful space between them. For a minute, neither spoke. The sounds of the city, traffic, distant sirens, snippets of conversation, seemed amplified after the store's hushed interior. Finally, Keanu spoke, his voice low and gentle. "Mr. Pendleton," he ventured, having overheard the name inside. Arthur startled, lifting his head. His eyes were red-rimmed. He looked at the stranger beside him, confusion mixing with his residual shame. He still didn't recognize the famous face beneath the cap. "Are you all right?" Keanu asked, his gaze full of genuine concern. Arthur tried to compose himself, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Yes, thank you, son," he murmured. Just a bit foolish of me, I suppose. Dreaming too big." He gestured vaguely towards the store. "Places like that, they aren't for people like me." "Don't say that," Keanu said firmly but kindly. What happened in there was wrong. It had nothing to do with you and everything to do with their lack of decency, their prejudice. Arthur looked at Keanu, surprised by the stranger's vehemence. You saw it all? I did, Keanu confirmed, and it made me angry. Nobody deserves to be treated like that. Especially not someone trying to do something beautiful for the person they love. He paused. 50 years. That's incredible. Clara must be a very special woman. A faint smile touched Arthur's lips at the mention of his wife's name. The stranger's unexpected empathy was a balm to his wounded spirit. He found himself opening up, telling this kind stranger more about Clara, her resilience, her quiet strength, her love for simple things, her lifelong, unspoken fondness for pearls. He spoke of their modest life together, the joys and sorrows shared, the sacrifices made, and how this small pendant was meant to be a symbol of it all. Keanu listened intently, his gaze never leaving Arthur's face. He heard the deep love and respect in the older man's voice, saw the history reflected in his eyes. This man's story, his devotion, felt more real and valuable than anything inside that cold, glittering store. Your love for Clara, the life you've built together, Keanu said softly when Arthur finished. That is the real treasure, Mr. Pendleton. Far more precious than anything they sell in there. He paused again, a thoughtful expression on his face. But, he continued, a new determination entering his voice. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to buy that pendant if you wish. And more importantly, it doesn't mean they should get away with treating you or anyone else with such disrespect. He stood up and offered his hand to Arthur. Come back inside with me. Arthur looked up, startled. What? No, I can't. They won't do anything. Keanu interrupted gently but firmly. Not this time. You deserve to buy that gift for Clara, and you deserve to do it with dignity. Trust me. Arthur hesitated, looking at the outstretched hand, then into the stranger's steady, reassuring eyes. There was something compelling about this man, an aura of quiet strength. Maybe he was right. He had nothing left to lose. Taking another deep breath, he grasped Keanu's hand, the younger man's grip firm and supportive, and allowed himself to be helped to his feet. Walking back towards the imposing entrance of Argento and Perole, Arthur felt a strange mixture of dread and burgeoning hope. His legs still felt weak, but the presence of the kind stranger beside him gave him a strength he hadn't possessed minutes earlier. Keanu walked with a calm, measured stride, his face unreadable beneath the cap. But Arthur could sense the resolve radiating from him. As Keanu pushed open the heavy door again and held it for Arthur, the atmosphere inside instantly froze. The few remaining customers, Julian and Mrs. Davenport, all turned, their expressions shifting from surprise to annoyance and disbelief. Julian stepped forward immediately, his face hardening. I thought we made it clear, sir, he snapped, addressing Arthur but glaring past him at Keanu. You are not welcome here. If you don't leave immediately, I will call security. Keanu moved smoothly to stand slightly in front of Arthur, positioning himself directly in Julian's path. He spoke, his voice quiet but cutting through the tense silence. I don't think that will be necessary, Julian. And with a deliberate, almost casual movement, he reached up and removed the baseball cap. Then he took off the sunglasses. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. Time seemed to stutter. Julian's jaw dropped, his eyes widened in stunned recognition, the color draining from his face. Miss Davenport let out a small, sharp gasp, her hand flying to her chest, her professional composure shattering like glass. The remaining customers murmured. Phones were discreetly, and then not so discreetly, raised. The name rippled through the opulent space in hushed, incredulous whispers. Keanu Reeves. Mr. Reeves. Julian finally managed to stammer, his voice barely a squeak. My God, I had no idea. Please, sir, forgive me. Forgive us. Keanu held up a hand, silencing him. His gaze swept over Julian, then Ms. Davenport, then the stunned onlookers. His expression was calm, almost serene, but his eyes held a steely intensity. The apologies are appreciated, Julian, Ms. Davenport, he said, his voice filling the room with quiet authority. But they should be directed to Mr. Pendleton here. And frankly, the issue isn't that you didn't recognize me. The issue is how you treated him when you thought he was just nobody. He turned slightly towards Miss Davenport. You spoke of standards. Let's talk about standards. Does the standard of basic human decency not apply within these walls? Is respect conditional upon the perceived value of a customer's wallet or the label on their jacket? He gestured towards Arthur. This man came here today with a heart full of love for his wife of 50 years. He came with money he saved diligently, honestly, over 5 years, to buy a symbol of that love. He approached you with respect, and how did you meet him? With judgment, with condescension, with suspicion. You questioned his means, insulted his taste, and effectively threw him out because he didn't fit your narrow definition of a valuable customer. Ms. Davenport was pale and trembling. Mr. Reeves, I assure you this is not representative. We value all. Do you? Keanu interjected, his voice sharpening slightly. Because your actions today suggest otherwise. You value transactions over people. You value profit over principle. You seem to have forgotten that the beautiful objects you sell. He gestured towards the glittering displays. Derive their true value, not just from the carats or the craftsmanship, but from the meaning people invest in them. The love, the memories, the milestones they represent. Things Mr. Pendleton understands far better than either of you demonstrated today. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. The silence was absolute, broken only by the distant, indifferent ticking of the clocks. Arthur Pendleton wanted to buy a simple pearl pendant. Keanu continued, his gaze locking onto Julian, the one he pointed out earlier. Please bring it out again. And this time, handle it, and him, with the respect they both deserve. Julian, looking utterly crushed, moved mechanically towards the display case. His hands fumbled with the key. He retrieved the pendant with painstaking care, placed it on a black velvet tray, and brought it to the counter, avoiding everyone's eyes. Mr. Pendleton, Keanu said gently, turning to Arthur. Your pendant. Arthur stepped forward, his earlier shame replaced by a quiet dignity, though his eyes were still moist. He looked at the delicate pearl, then back at Keanu, a world of gratitude in his gaze. Yes, he whispered. It's perfect. Then please, Keanu said, gesturing toward the trembling Julian and the cash register. Complete your purchase. He looked pointedly at Julian. And I trust the transaction will be handled smoothly this time. With cash. Arthur carefully took the saved money from his packet, the result of 5 years of small sacrifices, and placed it on the counter. The crisp bills seemed almost luminous in the charged atmosphere. Julian processed the payment in complete, terrified silence, his hands shaking as he placed the pendant in an elegant, argento and perle box and handed it to Arthur. With a small, elegant box now safely in his hand, Arthur turned to Keanu, his voice thick with emotion. "Mr. Reeves, there are no words. How can I ever thank you?" Keanu met his gaze, a warm, genuine smile finally reaching his eyes. "No thanks are necessary, Arthur," he said sincerely. "Seeing the look on your face now, knowing you can give Clara the gift you dreamed of, that's thanks enough. You have a beautiful love story. Cherish it." He placed a hand briefly on Arthur's shoulder. "And always remember your own worth. It has nothing to do with stores like this." He then turned for a final look at Miss Davenport and Julian, who stood rigidly, faces still pale with shock and shame. "I hope," Keanu said, his voice low but carrying unmistakable weight, "that today serves as a permanent reminder. Respect costs nothing, yet it is the most valuable commodity you can offer. Perhaps adjust your standards accordingly." Without waiting for a response, Keanu gently guided Arthur towards the door. As they stepped out into the now softer light of the late afternoon, leaving the stunned silence of Argento and Perle behind them, Arthur felt as if a heavy weight had been lifted from his soul. "I still can't believe it," Arthur murmured, looking at the box, then at Keanu. "You didn't have to do that. For a stranger." "We're not strangers anymore, are we, Arthur?" Keanu replied with a gentle smile. "And sometimes, standing up for what's right is the only thing to do." They walked a few steps together in comfortable silence. "Go home to Clara?" Keanu said finally. "Make this anniversary unforgettable." They shook hands warmly, a bond formed in an unexpected crucible of humiliation and kindness. Arthur, clutching his precious gift, walked towards the bus stop, his step lighter, his heart full. Keanu watched him go for a moment, then turned towards where his motorcycle was parked. The errand for his friend was forgotten, replaced by something far more significant. As he walked, he reflected on the strange currents of life. How anonymity could paradoxically reveal more truth than fame, how easily people judged, and how profoundly moving simple dignity and enduring love could be. He hadn't set out to teach anyone a lesson, only to correct an injustice he had witnessed. Yet, he felt he had also learned something himself. He reached his Norton, swung a leg over, and settled into the familiar leather seat. The engine roared to life, a sound of contained power in the cooling evening air. As he pulled away from the curb, merging back into the flow of the city, he thought of Arthur and Clara and their 50 years. He thought of his own father's watch, still waiting for its repair. He would take it to a different kind of place now, a place where craftsmanship and history were valued for their own sake. Because he knew, more clearly than ever, that the most precious things in life weren't displayed under spotlights in exclusive boutiques. They were held quietly, sometimes invisibly, within the human heart. And the ticking of a restored watch, like the endurance of love, was a value beyond measure.